Hello, Legionnaires, and welcome to some Rando RPG live stream. That's right, it is now time to sit down on the virtual couch where we will talk, rant, and joke about tabletop role-playing games. If we're lucky, we'll learn a thing or two, and of course, we will clown those unwashed and unkempt degenerates in this hobby who need to be pushed back into their noxious troglodyte caves. I hope you're ready, so let's get going. All right, there we go. Thank you all for joining me on some Rando RPG live stream. I am John Maxley-Oshlow, your facilitator and host for tonight's discussion, Mastering Tabletop RPG Game Mechanics. Now, before I introduce the panelists and start the discussion, let's knock out some of these announcements. First and foremost, I am truly grateful that you're joining us for tonight's live stream discussion, or VOD if you're watching at a later date. I hope you enjoy the conversation. After live stream ends, the full live stream remains, that's the word, remains, not remains available to YouTube members only, while the first 4 segments will be chopped into videos for the public to view a month from now. Wait, get the wait. So, what do we do on some Rando RPG live stream? In segments 1 through 4, we discuss topics surrounding the tabletop role-playing game hobby with an emphasis on individual experiences, desires, and expectations. In tonight's 4 segments on Mastering Tabletop RPG Game Mechanics, we hope to provide ideas, suggestions, and food for thought for your tabletop RPG session. And in segment 5, we let down our hair, just talk about some nerd issues of interest, for the remaining time. Maybe have a giveaway. If you want to join the show, if you have some presence and charisma, a good AV setup, and an interest in discussing tabletop RPGs in this format, you can join the Legionofmyth Discord to stay tuned for future topics. Help us get to know you, and maybe, stress the word maybe, we'll get you on the show to talk about your experience as well. Please consider supporting Legionofmyth through the links in the live stream's description. YouTube takes 30%, Twitch takes 50% of your hard-earned money, while Rumble, PayPal, Streamlabs, and Ko-Fi take between 0 and 5%. Now, regarding the Rumble rants and the Super Chats, less than $20, I'll read at the end of the segment. $20 or more, I'll interrupt the conversation to read your rant or chat relatively immediately. $50 or more, where's my shot glass? Oh, I can't find my shot glass. A shot glass is missing. Guess we don't get $50 super chats tonight. Oh well. $50 or more, I will take a drink in your name, and you can force the panel to answer any tabletop RPG related question of your choice right then and there. One question. Don't make it like a 9-parter, okay? If we make $100 or more in super chats or Rumble rants, so it'll be a $25 Palladium Books or Drive-Thru RPG gift card giveaway during segment 5 at the end of the live stream. Legionofmyth YouTube members, as well as tonight's Super Chatters and Rumble Ranters, will have the opportunity to win, but you must be watching at the time of the giveaway, else it rolls over to next week. No, I'm not budging on that. People like it. I don't care. That's just the way it's going to be. Gotta watch. Gotta be here. The charity we support is the Wounded Warrior Project, a national nonpartisan organization whose mission is to honor and empower wounded warriors. Please refer to links in live stream's description for the link to where you could make your hopefully tax-deductible donation. I probably should have put that little thing right up there, right? Just check that little guy out. Anyway, we'll go to subscribe now. Please like this video and subscribe to all the panelists' channels. By the way, they are all in the description of this video already. You can subscribe to each and every one of them even before we get started if you want. And thank you for your time and for your support. Now, all of that out of the way, joining me tonight is, we will start at the top there. We have Tim from, I can't read the, was it Characters, and what's the name of your channel again? Well, who are you? Yeah, we'll just do this. Right? Who are you? What content or products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Yeah, name's Tim. I'm Character and Dice, where I make characters, so you don't have to. Right now I'm focusing on Palladium Fantasy. RPG experiences, everything from 2nd edition D&D to Palladium to Traveler, a little bit, and others.
Awesome. Okay. And then below him, we have Rick, also known as 28mm RPG. Same questions. Who are you? What content or products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
I'm just some guy. And I'm apparently the leader of the RPG Crusade. And we do 4D role-playing. Yeah, I get a big king's hat. Yeah, no hats. No. Yeah, I just run the website and the Discords and everything. So. Okay, you want to shout out your website real quickly, or? Yeah, well, you can go to the rpgcrusade.com. It's going underneath it's doing a slight renovation. We'll have the complete site at the end of this month in a totally new format. So
what's awesome about that is for the people watching live, that's like, oh, okay, I got to wait a couple weeks. The people who actually watch this on video later, it's already ready to go. So there we go.
Right.
And finally, what is your tabletop RPG experience?
Mine, a lot. I played since 79, and just played all kinds of RPGs. Quit for a little bit in the year 2000s, and then came back in, and here I am again.
Pretty common story, by the way.
Yeah, well, kids, family, that sort of thing. So.
Fair enough. All right, then we have GM Fritz. Once again, who are you? What content or products do you create? And what is your tabletop RPG experience?
I'm GM Fritz. I'm over there on the Forge and Brush Gaming. Previously, the GM's Alcove. For some of you guys that follow me on YouTube. But yeah, that's kind of what I do. I do RPG games, a lot of war gaming stuff, miniatures, board games, all that wonderful stuff from our hobby. Experience? Well, I probably go back to 1981. So you got me beat there, Rick. Ouch. But yeah, 1981, Redbox, all that good stuff. Played D&D forever and ever. Tried a lot of games in between. Took a break for about 8 to 10 years, as we all do. We like to take a little hiatus, it seems. I took mine. Traveled the U.S. Did a lot of stuff. Got in trouble, but we won't go into that. And here I am once again on my channel doing my hobby. Since 2012, a lot of RPG stuff. I love RPGs.
All right. So again, all the descriptions are in, or all the channels are in the description. So like GM Fritz, for those of you who've been watching the show, there you go. The guy who kicked me out of the game that he did not.
Bully. You're a bully.
I'm a bully. Frey was a bully. Frey the bully. All right. Well, let's get started here. Normal format is 4 segments, 2 questions per segment, some follow-up, a little back and forth conversation we'll have. We'll try to keep each segment to about a half hour. I failed at that at every single turn so far. Maybe today will be the success story. I doubt it. But first topic we have for tonight is about rules as tools. And we'll start at the top of the screen there with Tim, and we'll ask, so how do you balance? Oh, by the way, just for full disclosure out there, I normally post the questions for folks beforehand so they get an idea of what I'm going to ask. They don't know the follow-ups, but they know the generic questions. Well, Tim here said he had them, but he had the wrong set of questions. So he's actually flying by the seat of his pants tonight. So let's see how well he can do flying by the seat of his pants. So first question is, how do you balance strict adherence to the rules with the need for narrative flexibility?
That's really going to depend on the situation. I try to stick to rules as written as much as possible. I think that's the best options. But lately, I've been becoming a little bit more flexible, especially with experiences of some lighter systems like Essence 20. So sometimes the narrative needs to come first. So sometimes if the player wants to do something really cool, you know what? It's a game. Do it. Let's do it. Let's see what happens. I was just coming up with some scenarios in my own head. BattleTech, what if you took a Locust, strip down a couple tons of armor, throw a jump jet on it, so that way, in a couple of directional jets, so the Locust can come up and jump jet and rotate to sideways to impact on, say, an Atlas, about chest level, and I could see the legs breaking on that, and one of 2 things: either the Atlas will fall down from the impact, or they're going to stand up. Either way, they're going to be right at the perfect spot for headshots to daka into their skull, and take that Atlas down. And you might lose the legs of the Locust, but that would be a really cool thing.
That's running towards the target. Jumping, which would be a +3 modifier, and then, you'd shoot first, so you wouldn't have the modifier. Well, you would have the jumping modifier to shooting, but then you'd have to roll the physical attack roll. Good luck with that.
I didn't say it's impossible. It was highly improbable, but it would be a really cool thing to do. And it's a lot easier if you use the Alpha Strike rule. So,
fair enough. So. So you said you're leaning more into a little more understanding of, like, say, the narrative side of it. Do I want to ask this? No, we'll say when do rules get in the way of playing the game?
when it becomes cumbersome and you have to say, time out, 20 minutes later, you're still looking something up. So okay, you know what? We've wasted enough time. Here's a decision. We're moving on.
Okay. All right, we'll leave it there for now. We got another question coming up, so I'll go in looks like clockwise manner here. Wait, hold on, I'm gonna stream, so I probably got that back. Nope, I was right, clockwise. We'll go down to Rick down there, and again, same question for you. So I knew I was gonna forget doing it when I was doing the questions. I was gonna actually promote one of you guys on the screen, and I didn't do it. I'm a bad host, and you know what? I'm not playing favorites, so I'm just not gonna do it today. So, how do you balance the strict adherence for rules with the need for narrative flexibility?
So when we get together, what we'll end up doing is we delve into a variety of different kinds of mechanics. So it's not just like a D&D kind of system. It's all kinds of stuff. So every time we get together to get ourselves a game together, we have a social contract that we have written up. We have to indicate that we got to have good cameras and all that kind of stuff. All that put aside. We decide on doing a session 0, and from our session 0, we decide on what's going to be this game about. If I'm the game master, I usually show up with a premise, and the rest of the players decide how we're going to do this for the game and what their knowns and everything are going to be. So when we put together our sessions, we get quite in depth and detail about how we're going to do this. And when we start the game, all of our books go to the side. We don't open up books during our session. The game master generally is the arbiter of the rules, arbiter of the rules, and we just keep everybody in character and just carry on with whatever the narrative is.
So how do you prevent things from getting out of control? Go ahead.
So with the control part of thing, a lot of game masters have the issue of wanting to control certain things in the game. We do outline what, as some may know, we do a little co-creation in our games, which kind of rile up a few people, because some of the game masters don't want to co-create with their players. We are very co-creative with our players, and when we have we have specific rules laid out on how you present questions, that sort of thing. If you want to know something more, you ask through your actions. And once everybody's got that down pat through a few practices in the background, before we ever put together the game, it runs fairly smoothly. So we rule 0 a lot of stuff too. So that's chopping off some of the rules that may be a little bit more board gamified. So we're more theater of the mind. And we tend not to do the board gamey kind of stuff. So all that kind of stuff we do kind of cut away, and we figure out how we're going to portray that in the game.
For somebody new who may not know what it means, what is that? I'm sorry. What is Rule 0?
Rule 0. Okay, so your collection of rules that you have in front of you from your book. There's usually a Rule 0 in a lot of game manuals, where it says if it doesn't suit your type of play, the game master has the right to go ahead and chop away certain parts of the rules in order to make it more suitable for their gaming table. So we take great liberties with that sometimes.
Okay. All right, let's move on around the circle here. Let's go grab GM Fritz. Again, same question for you. How do you balance strict adherence to the rules with the need for narrative flexibility? Put on the glasses for this. We got the thinking cap going on. This is awesome.
Quiet, 4 eyes.
oh, that's hurtful.
Well, in my games, narrative is always number 1. But the rules, the written rules and stuff. I mean, I pay good money for these rules. I'm going to use them, and I try to stick to them as much as possible. I really don't like to use house rules and stuff like that too often. I've been doing that in the past, and it gets overwhelming, and it just changes the game. So I tend to focus a lot on sticking to the rules. Well, like Tim mentioned there. I mean, it's a game, you know. But whenever a situation comes up during play and you know that, oh, I forgot this rule, or what was it? I got to look this up. I have a basic rule of thumb is you can't find it within 20 to 30 seconds. We move on. I make a ruling. Most of the time that doesn't happen. My players are good with that. My players will look up things for me while I keep the narrative going. That happens every once in a while. But my basic rule is that the narrative comes first. So I don't let the rules creep in and slow down the flow of the game. That's very important to me, the flow. It all depends, though, the game you're playing and stuff. Pathfinder's pretty deep mechanically. I tend to get rules intensive at the time. My players enjoy that. But other times we're playing Dragonbane, you know, where it's not so intense with the rules and it's more narrative. And I go both ways. It doesn't matter, but that's how I approach it anyway.
Okay. So how do you allow for outside the box creative thinking, so to speak, when the rules don't specifically address that aspect through the narrative?
Oh, I love it. Bring it on. That's what I'm all about, being spontaneous and creatively spontaneous. I love doing that. I'm always doing that. As far as my players doing things like that, I mean, yeah, you could do anything you want and let's see what happens. And I make
so
up
if
stuff
a
on
rule
the fly.
doesn't address that action, though, the of whatever's happening at that time, how would you handle it? Would you try to find the closest rule? Do you just house rule, or you just say, you know what, give me a high-low roll or something? I mean, how do you handle it when they do something like, wow, that actually isn't covered in the game?
Well, all three things. If it's something I know is in the rules, I'll go to the rule and we'll use the rule. If not, I'll make it up. I'll just throw in my GM credentials and see what happens and comes out of it. That's most of the time what I do. And the third is rolling a dice, just the old D6. Okay, you have a 2 in 6 chance that the arrow that you had little fire on it catches the beast on fire. 2 in 6 chance. We roll it and boom, there it is. And we move on.
That's right. You call that your omen die, right?
My oracle.
Oracle. That's it. Oracle. Sorry. Okay, I forgot about that.
Did that a lot.
So one of the things that I don't know if folks have noticed yet out here, actually, one of the things I really like about this panel so far is we have people that kind of diverge. I mean, there are definitely some similarities, but that kind of diverge, more rules oriented versus, screw the rules, let's move on. So I hope as this is presented for you guys today, you get a little something from everybody here. Do you guys have any questions for each other? Before we move on to the next question here, anything that you guys want to bring up or find out more about that somebody else may have said?
Rick, how much do the rules play in your gaming? I mean, you said you kind of you don't just throw them to the side. It is still a game you're playing, right?
Yeah. If we're playing, say, for example, Traveler, everybody knows the rules. That's very simple. 2d6, higher is better, obviously, and usually the mean target number is going to be an 8 or higher. So everybody knows that. And, if I bring the target number higher or lower, that's, I indicate that on the screen. I usually have, like a banner that says, you must roll higher than a 10 or something like that. So I make them visual cues instead of me having to, regurgitate every time, some sort of, you must get this, you must get that, We try to cut away as much of that as we can possibly do during our games. Make it kind of sound like more of a narrative kind of a game system. But a lot of the roles can be kind of a given. If you in Traveler, if you have a 0 in your skill, you're fully trained. You're fully trained at guns or whatever it is that you're gun combat. If you know gun combat, you should be able to take apart the gun, put it back together again, that sort of thing. You should know everything about guns. If you don't, then you get the -3 because unskilled in Traveler, and that's how we roll. We do have these the rules, but we don't have our players roll for just everything. We only if they're under duress, and it's same with initiative. We never roll initiative unless it's a situation where maybe it's a gunfight. So then you have the two guys eyeing each other up, and then they go ahead and roll your initiative. You want to see who's faster. In those instances, we do utilize some of the rules that way. but in most cases, we'll go ahead and slim them down in order to kind of suit the more narrative, full in-character role play that we propose.
Cool. So they're a tool, and you're very free form with it.
Very free form with it. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Have you run into a situation yet? Well, probably not, because like you said before, you said social contract and practice sessions. It sounds like preseason for a football season. I was like, signing a contract, and then I got to go to training camp in order to play. What the hell?
Yeah, our practices are usually for new people that come into our group, and we usually get about 3 or 4 a week that pop in, and then we go ahead and set aside an hour where we go ahead and practice. We just do a simple role play. I just give them, say, bring your 2d6, and we're just you make up a character. Just pretend, you want to be we're doing fantasy fighter, whatever it is that you want to be, magic user. Okay, we'll run you through a little scenario. We'll see if you can stay in character, and we just practice that. And once the players kind of get the idea of how they're supposed to go about, and we do that with each individual game session, but in a group kind of format where we go ahead and discuss, okay, what do we want to do in this game? You guys make the setting. We really have, like when I come in, I just have a little premise, so the aliens are going to invade the planet Earth. That's my premise. The players won't know what's going on, but I say, okay, it's going to be on planet Earth. And what era do you want to be? We want to be futuristic? They start churning up ideas. They're going to do this, they're going to be that. Then they make characters, and then we go ahead and we go for our second session, which we involve our characters, and we start to figure out how our characters work in the system. So it's a little bit more involved. We're not one of those groups that invite people from the general public to come in and just spontaneously show up in the session. We do have a bit of a vetting that goes on with our group.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to bring up? Or are you ready to move to the next question?
I do have a quick question,
Sure.
Real quick, Fritz. If the narrative or the player has an idea that would break a rule, say for example, putting enchanting a weapon or a wand or something, but it would break the rule to exceed that number of enchantments. Would that be something you would allow?
Probably not.
Okay.
But if it fits the story we're telling,
okay,
and it benefits that, and I could see a positive outcome to it, I could add that to the story, and maybe that's a little house rule I got. But usually, the rules are there to provide the physics of your world.
Yeah.
There's only this is how things work. Rivers don't run uphill, that kind of thing. Everybody comes into this with that idea that this is the physics of the world and what can be done and what can't be done. It's all within the framework of your rules. So that's kind of how I approach it. So
okay.
I would think about that, whether or not somebody could do something outside of the rules in the game, but I'm open to it. Just depends.
You overload the magic item every time you use it. Now it has a 1 in 6 chance of exploding in the face.
Terrible.
Well, that's a good segue to our next question, though, which is what is your approach? And we'll start with Rick this time. What is your approach to rules interpretation and house rules? This is going to be an interesting one to hear how you discuss this, especially since you guys are so, pardon the term, but loosey-goosey, narrative-driven with the rules compared to some others. So when it comes to rules interpretation, there's a discrepancy, or somebody might see something differently, or saying, this is going to be how we handle at the table. Let's move on. What's your approach to that?
Yeah. Once again, it's always worked out with our session 0. We discuss which if it's a really complex rule system, we don't usually go with it. So we do tend to stay with the more simplistic rules for the game master end. if you know what I mean. Like, the amount of rolling and stuff like that. The less for me. The other game masters and all have different ideas on how complex they will have their systems. But for me, the less is better. More complex on the player end. So I'm more prone to play more Cypher or Traveler or any kind of system we could even do something like BattleTech or something like that. You have your little build of your character and everything. We prefer systems with more character driven focus in the rules, and but once again, that rule 0 is the thing that we start chopping away some of the clutter that we think doesn't kind of suit our game style. So
I'm going to put you on the spot just a little bit with this file. I just want to see if I can pull something out of you. What are a couple of your most common or notable house rules?
Our house rules. Oh,
okay. For you specifically, like the things that like almost every time you run this game, you're going to tweak this little thing, or because of a situation you ran into in the past, be very clear. This is how I read this language in this rule.
So, if man, it's. I mean, there's so many rule systems out there. How with we do have like a cadence of how we play our characters in our game. So we do have rules that state that you have to stay in character when you're in session. Okay, so whatever you say is going to be in character. Rules also include, you must include an action. Tell me where you are in this situation and what you're doing. So we usually have the players say, I do whatever. And that's perfect. You don't have to be an actor or anything like that. You just have to say what you're doing. Some of us will use voices and stuff like that. But with let's see, with complex, like I say, with the complex game mechanics and stuff, we go through that all in our session 0 with the players. We just decide on what to cut out. So
how about this? How about in a recent game that you guys have played, or what is something you did cut out?
A lot of times it is initiative. You know, a lot of times we'll be that. We'll have initiative when it makes sense. Not when it's like willy-nilly kind of thing. With times that you would go ahead and roll for skill checks and stuff like that. Usually mundane things, I will say, you don't have to roll a skill check for it unless, of course, there is something happening, somebody shooting at you, and you're like reaching for that gun that's on the shelf, above you, and you're trying to grab it. We're going to determine how long it takes you to find that gun or something like that with that. So, once again, we don't show up. I don't have my rule book on hand or anything. We go with what feels right in the session at the time. So, nobody has any rule books to reference from. They may have their character sheet, like for example, a couple of sheets like this, and with all their information written down, and if before the game starts, if there's some kind of question, how do we do this with the spells and stuff like that, we go through a quick one-on-one with the player, and we address any kind of discrepancies. We make sure everybody knows how to do a skill check, how to do a task check or whatever, and how to do combat. We just make sure everybody's up and up on the rules on that kind of respect, and that's the most important ones for our game style.
It's funny you said it, because one of the things that we talk a lot about here, especially when we cover Free League games, and I've been saying this for years, and I'm sure it's because we've been playing a long time, we have similar values in this one. Yeah, you only roll attribute skill checks, whatever, a challenge roll of some sort when the outcome is unknown and the meaningfulness of that outcome matters. So basically, if you have a chance of failure and that failure means something, you don't roll dice to see if you drove to work in the morning unless for some reason it's meaningful. And it's funny, by the way, if you sue me, when I finish writing my game, I actually have a very similar feeling on initiative that you do. A lot of people don't realize that. And what you said there, I have that codified in my game. Don't enter a combat round. Don't roll initiative unless there is a meaningful reason to determine who has to go first.
Yeah, that's true. And with man, I lost my train of thought there for a second.
Sorry.
With task resolutions and stuff like that, you gotta know as a game master what the fail will be. Okay, so you must know that inside your mind first before you even ask for a roll. That's the thing. I find that's real key in keeping the smoothness of the session going on. So that's one thing that's important that a lot of game masters don't think about at first. You're making the guy roll a save or a possibility of failure without thinking about what the failure is, and then you're caught with, what is this failure going to be? Sometimes we designate the players are allowed to say what their failures are and stuff like that. So it depends on how we engineered the game with our session 0. So
okay. Yeah. Well, we're going to slide on over to GM Fritz now, and we're going to ask him the same question. What is your approach to rules interpretation and house rules? And remember, sir, I played in your game before. I'll know if you're lying.
Well, like I said, I don't really use a lot of house rules. I try not to. I tailor the game. My games are, unique, but I feel I don't really have to do that by changing the rules much. Just certain rules I might or might not use. Certain races might not be in there. That's kind of a house rule. I might do that because it fits my setting. But house rules, interpretations, not a big deal with me. I am the GM, so my interpretation rules the day. So it's an easy thing for me to resolve. I try not to get hung up on it.
So when has a house rule implementation that you've had, and if you need to, you can go back a few years because I know you don't make any mistakes anymore, but when has an interpretation or a house rule gone sideways on you? I stumped him. See, he doesn't make mistakes.
Probably back playing 5e long time ago, 2013. No, 2019 maybe. I think I played for a few months of 5e, and I was playing Pathfinder First Edition before that, and I kept running into things like, man, it would be so much better if I was using a rule from Pathfinder in 5e, because 5e doesn't have a lot of rules like that. So I got to a point where it was like, well, instead of doing this, let's just play Pathfinder. Ultimately is what I did. So instead of making house rules, that's what I did. But as far as going sideways, I don't know. I don't use a whole lot of house rules, Max.
Okay.
I really don't.
That's fair.
I never had any go bad on me when I do keep them.
Just a question, Fritz. Yeah, with players, like different types of characters and stuff like that. Do you find that you have are you like open with everything with Pathfinder provides and all that kind of stuff, or do you have restrictions or anything like that? How do you address those?
Well, specifically with Pathfinder Second Edition, Paizo takes a view that Galarian, its default setting, everything is available. So it gets a little bit too much for my liking. I like a traditional, there's dwarves, elves, and stuff like that. I'm not into you want to be a lizard person or something like that, or a fungus person, which is a possibility there, leshies. But there's some things I just, I tell my players, stick to the core races and the things that make sense for traditional fantasy. But if you want to play something else, give me a good I don't know, a backstory, maybe a good reason why I could include it in the story that we're going to tell together. If it doesn't fit, doesn't make the cut. I just don't allow it because it just gets silly. It's a motley crew of creatures that don't even make sense eventually. So I try and keep it right from the get-go, like in your session 0. I make that quite clear that let's keep things traditional, and if anything outside of that, anything out of the core rule book, ask me first. So that's how I handle that.
Yeah, I mean, I've done some weird stuff. I let somebody, he had to convince me, but I let somebody play a fairy dragon in one of my AD&D 2nd edition games. And people like to hold that over my head. It's like, you say you don't do anything weird, but I remember you saying you had a fairy dragon in there. Yeah, he talked me for a bunch of hours about that. That wasn't like, yeah, it sounds like a fun idea. And he played it wonderfully. Everybody in the group loved him, his character. So it can work. Just the odds are, for my flavor, like, it's probably not. But sorry, Rick, you look like you're going to say something else?
No. I'm just nodding away. Yeah.
A good example. Max, you know this. One of my players was a vampire.
Oh, yeah.
And that's not something I really wanted to have in, but for the situation, I let her play the vampire, and we went along with that. And some stories that could have come out from that could have come out and would have been interesting to tell. But, the weird stuff I tend to lay off on unless it just somehow fits and I could do something with it. Just not anything,
Okay. Well, let's move over to Tim here. Timothy. Do you go by Tim or Timothy? Your account says Timothy. It says Tim there. Fair enough. All right. So what is your approach to rules interpretation and house rules?
I try to stick to as close to rules as written as possible. In regards to allowing oddball races, that was a hard lesson that I learned several times over. It took me a while to learn. Put your foot down. Stop doing it. In regards to house rules, specifically, mostly focused around, like my question earlier to Fritz, magic items. My current game I'm running, Palladium Fantasy, took a wild turn that I should have expected, but my ego was like, this sounds fun, let's do it. And they had a super item that just overran the game. So I've got to I'm learning to peel that back and resolve the fight in a way that's going to be satisfactory for everybody. So just got to be careful with the items. It's really with everything. You got to have an idea of what it is. You have to in settings that have everything like Pathfinder, Savage Worlds, Palladium. You'll have somebody who goes, I want to be a cyborg in a fantasy world. All right, let's time out. Let's do this instead. Okay.
I cast you. The first creature you meet is a rust monster. Now, for your next character is.
Yeah, really.
At what point do you remove a house rule that you implemented?
Once I get a better understanding of the rules that revolved around that house rule, then I can adequately explain to myself. I adequately explain to my players. Then I can say, all right, so this original rule I made, that was mess up. Here's why. So we're going to go with this method instead. So if I can explain it to myself and I can explain it to the players, then we can make that adjustment.
I witnessed that a lot in 3035 D&D, where people would make house rules because they're still used to the older editions of D&D, or they wanted to pull something in from another game, not realizing that there's a huge butterfly effect in that game. I feel the same way about Pathfinder, since it's based on the same engine, where it's like they'd make changes and then all of a sudden down the road, they come to find out that it affected this and then this and then this and then this. You're like, uh-oh. like it was a good idea at the time, but not now. One of the other things I noticed, like with house rules, is I'm an AD&D 2nd edition guy. I know it gets a lot of people's panties in a bind because of that, but the main thing, one of the things I've even said about 2nd edition AD&D, that it was kind of the 5e of its time, where it had way too much. It absolutely did. But there's a difference between the 5e crowd and us. We said no. like I want to play the next Drizzt. No, but it's in the no, but no. It's like we would tell people, no, I got the Humanoids Handbook, so I'm going to play a Wemmick. No, you're not. But it's right here. No, you're not. You can have all the books you want. And no, you're still not going to play that. So, and that's kind of like one of the things that I see is like the big difference between modern gaming. Like, Fritz was talking about Galarian. When I was playing in his game, I was throwing in a little bit of, traditional racism in there. And it got a couple of people spun up, over the fact that I was doing that. Because Galarian isn't built around that. It's built around that kumbaya, let's all dance together thing that I honestly don't like. But if you're going to play on a world like Galarian, if you want to make those changes, maybe you do have the house rule in, like, hey, the elves and dwarves don't get along so well. Goblins are nothing but a bunch of thieves. Whatever. Lizard men only live in the swamps, and no, you don't get to be one. At the same time, if you don't do that, well, the game is built around that itself. So you could find that the house rules don't fit the setting. Also, so. I do want to say I am reading a lot of the chat here, folks, and you guys are having some great conversations. I've got a few star, but there's a lot of good stuff that you guys are saying in there. And go ahead. Somebody's going to say something.
In regards to, you have to understand yourself as a GM. That is really important. Max is more than willing to say no. I'm not. I love the whole, that's why I love Rips. Everything's there already. So you want to be a cyborg fighting with the dragon with a vagabond who will probably be the most powerful character is that vagabond, but yes, that's why my fantasy game went so sideways, because I introduced howitzers, not just one but multiple, and so I've got to deal with that, and because I just want to, I like to put everything in there because that's just the way I am. I like it all. Just give it to me. And that's as GM,
well, that's why you play Rifts, right? I mean, let's be honest. That's the thing that Rifts excels at. And what is the game that I'm not the biggest fan of?
Yeah. Exactly.
So because I am much more apt to say no to a player than I am to say yes when it gets outside the normal scope of, we'll just call it the core rulebooks, because I'm always looking to how is the player trying to screw over the game or the campaign. And usually if they'll talk to me about it, okay, you can convince, like that Fairy Dragon. Now, I'd already played with him before. I knew he was a good role player, but Fairy Dragon, that goes, but he convinced me and it worked out. But I've had other people try weird things and it doesn't work out. So, I think we're going to hit some chat before we go into before we go into the full segment 2 here. But if there's anything you guys want to ask each other, go ahead while I get these ready, or I can just jump right into them. Okay, well, I'll jump right into them then. So Nerdy Ogre says, if the rules get in the way, either you're implementing the rules wrong or you're playing the wrong game. It's definitely there's a school of thought to that. Yes, I'm never raw. Like, I'll be honest with you, there's no game I know that I play rules as written outside the first time I play it. I find the things that it's weak, in my opinion, and then I change them. And I think that's part of what Rick, you're saying, the whole Rule Zero thing. It's like, this doesn't work for our table, but you should try. Yeah. I'm a firm believer that you should try raw first.
Oh, I totally get you on that one. It would be like us trying to go ahead and do a 5e game in what we do. It becomes a little bit too hard because there's a lot of rulings going on about your positioning and everything. In order to get this advantage, you must be here, blah blah blah. Your cone of your blast is going to be looking like this. When it comes to our style of gameplay, we have to cut away that kind of thing in order to keep it all theater of the mind. Because sure. That's the way we function. You can see games where I have used a virtual tabletop. That was me back in the day trying to search my way through and figure out ways of how to become more of a in character kind of game master, and let the players do their thing. But it's not necessarily, we don't ever use like house rules. It's just cutting away the things that we don't want, okay, that we don't need. It's so that's why you kind of trip me up on house rules. We don't have really any house rules other than your mannerisms at the game table is basically our first and foremost concern. So.
How to be a good host, make the guests feel uncomfortable. I did it. Okay. We'll move on here because I'm on time. There's so much I want to say, but I've got to.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to the next one. Rex Steele says limitations from the rules are supposed to provide inspiration for the story, and I've definitely got to comment on that. They may provide ideas you've never thought of. The dice are trying to tell a story. Listen to them. Now, there's a few things to peel away in that onion. So, first of all, I believe that playing tabletop RPGs is emergent storytelling. You know, the grognards get mad that I use the word story, and the modern crowd gets mad that I don't let them just do whatever they want, rule of cool. No, there's a balance there to me, and so I believe it's emergent storytelling. You are telling a story, but he's absolutely right. Those dice roll up like you thought you were going to tell the story of killing the dragon. Instead, you telling the story of you running away from the dragon as fast as you could, throwing all your crap off you so you can run faster. You know, that's all part of that storytelling thing. The other limitations are supposed to provide I've mentioned this a lot about Earth Dawn. One of the reasons why I love Earth Dawn so much, is because it had built-in limitations into the game. I'm not going to reiterate it all here. I've said it enough, but like the disciplines and the concept that the disciplines have this kind of closed-minded. I shouldn't say. You have to have a certain train of thought to play the discipline, but within that train of thought, you can have infinite diversity. Just find a unique way of playing that within that concept. The sword master being a showman, and there's 3 examples I always give, but you can find that. But yeah, that limitation is what actually makes the game more fun to me. Like it's not just unfettered imagination where it becomes all freaking, to me, nonsense gaming. But
that's why how the characters are created are really important. I really try to push that with my channel. With here are the options. Here's what can be done. You can customize it this, customize it that. If your stats here, it really does determine how your character behaves and how your character acts and what they perceive the world based off their stats that you roll up the rule that are per the rules.
Side note, just as a reminder for folks, I know I didn't mention it today. I said I was going to stop mentioning it, but I guess I will have to mention it again. You will not attack panelists or people in chat. At least not during the first 4 segments here. We don't do that anymore. So please, if you've got a problem with somebody, keep your beefs with other people, especially when they belong in other Twitters or Discords or whatever. Keep them elsewhere. We don't do that here. So, and anything else you guys want to say about this comment, or are we moving on? All right, we're moving on. Boop, get that one off. Raven, I agree with it. Raven and I don't always agree, but I'm with him on this one. Minimum 50% human party. That's right. Human-centric game. Forget all your little clown shoes, people. Take them. Take your dumb little elves and dwarves and, oh my God, your fairy people and monster men and drizzt and vampires. Take them out. Get rid of them.
Golden State all the way.
And now for the opposite commentary. Timothy, what do you think about that?
I mean, really, it's whatever the players, whatever the GM and the players agree upon. I'm all for coalition state. I love the coalition state. Hi guys, but I'm also all for the freedom fighters. It's because whatever you get, whatever runs for the table.
Okay. All right, let's. I have 2 comments that are basically the same thing, so I'm going to pick this one. Sorry, Zonalar, but I'm going to pick this one. So Shauner says, non-human races are fine as long as the player knows how to roleplay that race, and the race is in the game session's location. I will add one more thing to this, because I agree with that. If you're playing an orc, and you're playing a traditional D&D type game, okay? Where, and we're not talking 5e, where orcs are people too. No, they're not. They're monsters. And you're playing a traditional 5e game, and you want to play an orc. Timothy says, I want to play an orc in your game. It's not a good idea. I'm just going to let you know, nobody's going to like you. You're going to cause problems for the group, because when they try to go somewhere and they see you there, they're going to be treated like outcasts or vagrants themselves, there are going to be problems with this. Now, I'm not going to necessarily stop you. It depends on the type of game. A lot of times I actually will. But, if the players are okay with having that hang up, oh, we got a tiefling in the group. Well, that's a half demon creature. Every omen that somebody can think of, like my crops aren't growing because you guys brought in a tiefling. The people are closing their shutters and you can't buy anything because they're like, nope, you just brought a demon into town. Not going to happen. As long as you also do something like that that's consistent to the lore of the game, I also agree with what Shauna said. What do you guys think?
That's true.
Yeah, it is. Whatever the lore of the game, player choice. They choose to be the monster character, they're going to be treated as a monster character.
Yep. Yeah, that exactly. And somebody said in here too, it depends on like the setting and so forth. Yeah, there are settings like Galarian, for example, that is definitely more open-ended in that. And I get it. My mentality is that setting informs system. So yes, while the system is generically there, the setting has its own setting comes first. I mean, that's just go ahead.
You have settings like Sovereign Stone, one of my favorites. Orcs are normal, everyday characters. They're seafaring traders with water element. And for that setting, yes, you expect that.
It's funny you say that because, very few people give me crap about the fact that I love Earth Dawn, yet Earth Dawn has Dwarven Wizards. That's for you, Victor. It has orc, pretty much everything. There are a couple things orcs can't be, but orcs are players. They have trolls. They have all types of weird stuff in there, but it fits the setting, So, setting definitely informs the game. And then finally, unless you guys have any last comments, got a $2 super chat here. Thank you very much, Mercurius. 100% human party. Okay. Yeah, I'm in. I'll play that game.
Follows the state, baby.
Violence solves everything. Sovereign Son, dwarf Mongols. That's right.
Yes. Yes.
I was going to talk when I was on Bear's stream with Larry Elmore. I wanted to bring up Sovereign Stone, but there wasn't enough time on there. And Larry is such a good guy. All right. Well, I hope everybody liked this first segment, which is rules as tools. And looks like I went long again because of all the after stuff. But, you guys were on track. I went long, but I hope you guys liked it. Like, subscribe, and share. The next topic we're going to talk about is complexity versus accessibility. And I hope to see you guys in that video in just a moment or tomorrow.